unsteady. Some sparkles on the surface, calling the ancient bird in, oh, with a sense of purpose. Quiet, ready, quiet, ready, heron. Welcome to the Wednesday evening musicale called Ponds, Lakes, and Oceans. And it's interesting, I started with a song about a heron. You might think I'm having a hangover from the last musicale, which was about birds, but you will have been noticing that beautiful quilt as the intro happened, and I sang that little invocation to the heron. And Mark and I just got back from Cape Cod for a week of what was our honeymoon. And when we got back, my sister friend Sally Rogers came by and presented us with her wedding present to us, which was that incredible quilt with the heron in the center. I've been looking at that heron on her wall in her workspace for the last few years, kind of drooling over it and coveting it and having no idea it would end up being in my own home. I mean, we were gobsmacked. We were speechless. It's so gorgeous. So I have to mention the heron, and I have to mention the heron because the heron, even though we were on the Cape and by the ocean, it's a seabird as well as a freshwater bird. I mean, but you know there has to be water if there's going to be a heron around. And I wanted to proceed actually with a beautiful poem since we were in Cape Cod, and which is the home of Mary Oliver, and so much of her beautiful work comes from there and comes from the ponds, actually. She's written many poems about the life going on in and around the ponds. So I found this beautiful poem to continue that I want to share with you before we continue on to the other bodies of water included in this program. And this is called Heron Rises from the Dark Summer Pond. So heavy is the long-necked, long-bodied heron. Always it is a surprise when her smoke-colored wings open and she turns from the thick water, from the black sticks of the summer pond, and slowly rises into the air and is gone. Then, not for the first or last time, I take a deep breath of happiness, and I think how unlikely it is that death is a hole in the ground, how improbable that ascension is not possible, though everything seems so inert, so nailed back into itself. The muskrat in his lumpy lodge, the turtle, the fallen gate, and especially it is wonderful that the summers are long and the ponds are so dark and so many. And therefore, it isn't a miracle, but a common thing. This decision, this trailing of the long legs in the water, this opening up of the heavy body into a new life. See how the sudden gray-blue sheets of her wings strive toward the wind. See how the clasp of nothing takes her in. A Mary Oliver poem called Heron Rises from the Dark Summer Pond. Well, any of you who've been following my music know already that I love herons because in my Gritlaskin guitar, the headstock has a beautiful heron that he created for me when he built this guitar in 1987. So I was on the Cape, and we were on the ocean every day, walking in the sand and wading in the water. And so I came back to Connecticut. We're now in Mark's little beautiful recording studio at Signature Sounds in Pomfret, Connecticut. But I still am feeling the wash of the water and the feel of the water and the taste and the sound. It's all in there. And I'm realizing how much my life, the important parts of my life have embodied water. I grew up on Lake St. Clair in eastern Michigan, which probably out here you would call a pond. In the Midwest, we call things lakes that you call ponds out here. And not even hardly a lake, more like a bulge between the St. Clair River and the Detroit River that connects Lake Huron and Lake Erie. And that's where I grew up. So right on the water, experiencing the water all my life. And even though I'd never been to the ocean yet, one of the first songs I wrote when I was, 15, 16, when I got my first guitar was something, I'm in that angsty part of my adolescence, something like, tide breaks on the shore of my life and all within me yearns, and so on, and so on. That was where I was then. But we would sit on our seawall on a Sunday afternoon, and that was back before people were as knowledgeable as they are now, not like we don't have a long ways to go, and we would watch entire picnics float by our house as the afternoon proceeded, and we realized that the bay was just sort of the trash can for these various people having their picnics. Which leads me to this next song. When I was 19, 20, I went to Quetico, and I went canoeing for a week. My first experience doing that. I'd lived in Chicago for a while. I was feeling that sort of crushed urban thing. I spent a week in a canoe, and I regained and rediscovered the power in my body and my very arms to take me from one side of one of those lakes to another, or pond as you might call it, because Quetico is nothing but lakes connected by portages. And so you spend most of your days on the water, getting from one place to another. It was a glorious experience. And so my friend Bob Gibson, who had been up there already, had written half of this song, and I came back completely changed from that trip to Quetico and finished that song. And so I sing it for that power we get, for the time we spend on and around water. And I sing it especially for the water protectors, the people now who are doing so much to stop the pipelines and stop the pollution of water and save this incredible part of our humanity and so much more, the entire existence of our world. So here's a song for all of them and all of us. Quetico. Quetico, I just don't know what else to do. I need to come back home to you again, to ease my pain, to smell the air, to touch a loon, to feel the stars, to see the moon. It sets my soul to singing once again. Quetico, Quetico, I'm lost and so alone here in this throng. I've lost the sight of right and wrong. It's been so long to see God's creatures running free, alive and in the place they ought to be. Quetico, Quetico, to drink of waters crystal clear, return it in each joyful cheer that falls, to share it all with someone else like you and me, who's never felt so sure or free as when we met the land and heard the call. Quetico, where silence is no cause for fright, and time is when you stop, and when you start, go live the part of voyager, of Indian. Take all you need to live within the strong canoe that takes you to the heart. Quetico, Quetico, we're lost and so alone here in this throng. We've lost the sight of right and wrong. It's been so long to smell the air, to hear a loon, to touch the stars, to feel the moon. It sets my soul to singing once again. where'd it go? 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 Yeah, where'd it go? It was one of the things during COVID that some of my friends were still able to do because you're isolated up there, and they could get out on these lakes and get outside and get replenished and rejuvenated on the water. And so, so important. Even though we lived on a lake when I was a kid, we went north. We went to the western side of Michigan to the Sleeping Bear Dunes on Lake Michigan, and we crossed the Mackinac Bridge to the Upper Peninsula, so we got to see Lake Huron, and we got to go to Niagara Falls when I was 4 and see Lake Ontario, and you see Lake Erie along on that trip. And in one of those trips to the Upper Peninsula as a youngster, I'm sure I saw Lake Superior for the first time, but it wasn't until after my trip to Quetico. I was out canoeing in Lake Superior, very close to shore, I might add, for those of you who might be getting worried, with a friend of mine. And we were in the waves off the shore of Duluth, Superior, that area. And I was fresh off my Quetico trip, and I was feeling so good. And that's when this next piece I want to do for you came out. That's when I started sort of externalizing everything I'd experienced up in Quetico a few months before. And I'm going to start, though, with a little vocal that, on that same trip, I was walking by myself on the shore of Lake Superior, and just walking in solitude as a grown woman, I heard this voice coming out of Lake Superior, a voice, and that became the melody for this little piece I want to start with, called Lake Superior Lament, and then Replenish. Every day flashes like a spray of blue jays. A golden crown each one, like an eagle seen against the sun. Now, if I were in a room full of you, right here with me, I would invite you to join me in the hum-along. It's going to be the background of this piece I'm about to play for you. Just follow the melody. I'm playing on the dulcimer, and you've got the hum down, all right? That's it. We go on. Canoe under hot sun. The upturned paddle guides liquid to our dry mouths. Water within us, water surrounds us. A great mystery, our becoming dry at all. Replenish, replenish. All needs to be replenished. The great whistling pines, the tenacious beaver, the ancient loon, the rush of the young eagle's wings as it dips low over our canoe. Replenish the eyes bathed in this delicate solitude, this trembling eternity called back in mid-sweep, only to be assessed by greed-parched eyes. Replenish each shriveled heart, which has its moments only at events set aside for its song, yet cannot fly for the connection between the rock and the human body, the heron's wing and the hope in our souls. We go on, we go on. Our paddles dance with the lake water to the music in our throats. We will grow dry again, perhaps leap into the water. Small, symbolic celebration, a great and endless task which, gracefully undertaken, might allow us all to go on and on and on. Every day flashes like a spray of blue jays. A golden crown upon each one, like an eagle seen against the sun. Ooh, 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 Lake Superior Lament and the Replenish poem for all of you water journeyers and water protectors and water lovers out there. So, I grew up on Anchor Bay, but I've also lived on both sides of Lake Michigan. I lived in Milwaukee and I lived in Traverse City, but not only that, I actually lived in the middle of Lake Michigan for 10 years on Beaver Island. And I also lived in the middle of the Mississippi River, right off of downtown Minneapolis. So, as I say, water pulls me, water calls me. And one day I was sitting at my friend's house in Traverse City waiting for, in fact, my friend Sally to show up for a rehearsal. Traverse City, Michigan is right on East Grand Traverse Bay, which is part of Lake Michigan. And it was one of those beautiful, sunny, calm, sparkly days. And I was moved to write this little tune, which I call East Bay Waltz. East Bay Waltz. Well, we started with an homage to the ocean, my recent trip to the Atlantic Ocean, and then we continued with the pond, and we spent a little time on the lakes, the lesser lakes, that in New England we might call ponds, but in the Midwest we call lakes. And then we're going to go back to the ocean now to wind up this musicale, because when I was first falling in love, I was making one of my first trips, maybe my very first trip out to see the person who has now become my mate, my husband. And I didn't even think about living in New England yet on the East Coast, but I think I had like a body premonition, and it occurred in the sort of the form of water. So I was crossing the Huron River in Ohio on 8090, the Ohio Turnpike, and this song came into my head. Before I do it, though, I just want to thank you for tuning in. I have no idea who listens these days or how you find me. I'm so grateful if you have found me, and please share. It seems like Facebook is changing the game up all the time, and it's harder to track now. It's harder to follow. I've been doing some live shows, but it's getting to be winter, and we still are in a pandemic, folks. And so a lot of people are still postponing and canceling gigs. So I'll be doing more of these musicales. Stay tuned. I was thinking about doing a Halloween one, but I mean, the actual news is so scary, much scarier than anything Halloween could provide at this point. I'm just going to let it ride and stick with the beautiful stuff and the healing stuff. So if you go to my website, you can see that last video that was about the birdies and all of the others that I've been doing over the last year. ClaudiaSchmidt.com is that website. And there's also a donation station there. If you care to drop something in, it would be gratefully appreciated, not required, but appreciated. And also all my CDs are there and all that information. So check that out too. And thanks for listening, and I'll be back around pretty soon. I'll let you know, okay? Here we go. Eastern Shore. This also has a great chorus for you in it. I crossed the Huron River in Ohio. I felt a calling to the eastern shore, a fragrant memory of salt spray at high tide. I felt it there some lifetime before. Ah, the sea is always calling us home. It's the chorus. Here we go. Ah, the sea is always calling us home. I drove the whole night to get there by daybreak. Out through the darkness, creatures held their space. Unseen companions in and all around me, keeping me steady toward the morning's face. Here we go. Ah, the sea is always calling us home. Just in case you were a little behind there. Here we go. Ah, the sea is always calling us home. Working, radio is blaring. It doesn't matter which songs take me there. I cross the bridge and feel the water rising, joy in my heart and salt wind in my hair. Here we go. Ah, the sea is always calling us home.